Now it's time for Inspirational Women, and my guest, the amazing Lorene Cary. She is a wonderful writer, a great author, a playwright. She is a social activist and teaches at the University of Pennsylvania. Today we meet Lorene to discuss her latest book, the memoir, Ladysitting. And it provides a wealth of topics and important insights of Lorene's life and how we find relevance in it. Let's now meet Lorene. Lorene Cary, good morning, and thank you so greatly for being with us this morning.
Thank you. I'm just delighted.
I am as well, because you are such an incredibly wonderful writer. And so I guess it's no surprise, or it's wonderful that you also teach creative writing at the University of Pennsylvania, U Penn, because the story is just so enveloping. It's well, right now we're talking about your latest book that's just come out in paperback, Ladysitting, My Year with Nana at the End of Her Century. The title itself is so captivating, like wanting to know about the centenarian. And then underscoring this is the method, the way that you write, the language. It just is so captivating that my feeling is we find ourselves right there along with you, maybe as your shadow. Yeah, I think as a shadow.
So.
How's that?
Yeah, I hope so. You know, the reason to do a memoir instead of something else is just that. What you want to do is you want to bring people in. And I remember I wrote one other memoir about going to boarding school in New England in the early days of integration, racial integration, and co-education. And I heard someone talking on our NPR station here in Philadelphia, and that person said that what you're doing in a memoir is you are trying to get people to come over to your side and to look. You're showing them through your little broken piece of glass that's like your glasses, and you say, this is how it looks to me. What do you think? This is how it felt. This is what it smelled like.
Yeah.
This is why I worried. What do you think about that? And that's what a memoir should do. It should not lecture to you. It should not make you feel pity for the person writing. It should not be that the person cut the vein and bled all over the page. It's not confession. It says, come with me into this part of life. And I mean, the part of life we're talking about is the end of life with an older loved one. 50-something, 54, 55 million Americans are taking care of someone who is disabled or elderly. Add COVID to that, and it's just crazy. But every year, that's what we do.
And to varying degrees of how we approach this. And I so appreciate in Ladysitting the kind of love, the respect, your desire to have your Nana come and live in your home, because the idea of her having to go anywhere else for care just seemed like it just was not going to happen. It wasn't possible.
Well, I mean, let's just be straight up here. Nana did not have a plan B. There was no plan B. She would not hear about a plan B. So my husband, in one of his naughty moods, said she didn't have a plan B because she had a plan L, which was the person named for her. But she also was a difficult person. She was smart, and she could be funny, and she had been wildly generous and indulgent, in fact, to me and to my sister when we were kids. But she could be really difficult. She was not someone with whom you had easy intimacy. And she was not like, say, my Aunt Emily, who had been in a nursing home after her stroke. And Emily could figure out how to live with people. She made friends. She used to sit her wheelchair by the nurse's station. She loved to gossip. She made a community, even though she couldn't speak well, even though she was paralyzed on one side. Nana could not. So it makes a big difference in terms of how that person will go into some sort of communal life.
And that made the decision so clear for you that she needed to be with you. You were able to take her into your home, and it was going to give her the best possible end-of-life experience.
That's certainly what we hoped. I'll also tell you frankly that we took her in when she was put onto hospice, which usually means that the person has 6 weeks on the outside, maybe 6 months to live. Mm-hmm. And we had talked, my sister at the time had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old and lived 2 hours away. And my grandmother wanted to be close to her house, close to her business and all that. And we happened, because my husband is an Episcopal clergy, we happened to be in a rectory which had lots of room. And so we were able to take her in. My younger daughter was just, I think, in middle school going to high school. So we had the family set up to be able to do it. Not everybody does.
Which is true. And we live these distances. Your sister was 2 hours away when my mother was in her later last days. We're 2,000 miles apart. Even as it was approaching that, when we're that kind of distance, it's so, so difficult. So it is a gift when when all these things line up, where we are closer in proximity, where we have the space, and we know that is really the best thing for the person, as it was for your Nana.
Yeah. And the money. It is so hard. People are struggling so hard to keep a roof over their heads and food in their mouths. So I don't want to take any of that for granted. Mm-hmm. We also had the church next door to us, which means that we had a set of regular activities. I talk in the book about hearing during the summer. By the way, the 6 weeks to 6 months ended up being more than a year and a half because Nana got better. She used to sit on the bed and say, "Oh, honey, you're taking such good care of me. I can't die." No, everybody can die. but she felt immortal. Nana really, really did feel quite immortal. We went with a wheelchair at night. For instance, with the church next door, we heard there was a local lyric opera company that practiced, and we listened to them. The wonderful organist, Roland Ware, came and practiced. And I have in the book this one time when we actually came in, and she was able to take off all of the gizmos that we figured out to help her communicate. She had earphones and a microphone that we spoke into because her hearing had gone. She had very strong eyeglasses from the low vision clinic. She had oxygen toward it. But just in the wheelchair, the oxygen was toward the end. She didn't need that at first. She took off the earphones. She took off the glasses and closed her eyes. And the organ was so, you know how it vibrates through you. Mm-hmm. And I remember she said, "Oh, honey, I feel like myself again." Yeah.
Oh.
That's something.
What an incredible opportunity, gift that she was able to have in her latter days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And not all of it was like that.
No.
She also did, sit in that same place and bang on the arms of the wheelchair, shouting, "Why am I still alive?" She couldn't hear. She couldn't see. I was working. She felt like she was a burden. She had been a trustee for this small real estate business for years. Started by an African-American power couple here in Philadelphia. Apartments, low-rent apartments, which when she cleared the mortgages in the 50s, began to generate a small amount of money. She took 6 to 10% of it as the trustee salary fee. And then she gave away from like 1950-something to the early 2000s, she gave away 150 very small scholarships to African-American students to go to college. That's what that business was for. Toward the end, because she kept the rents low, because she was so afraid of loans, no loans. She wouldn't take out a loan for anything. So apartments went down and down, and she would sell a building, use that money to fix up the others, and in that way, the parcel shrank. So that at the end of her life, but she was still doing it. You know, there was a man who would do the fixing for her. He'd bring her the rent. She'd sit in the kitchen and ask me to count it with her. I felt like we were like, she was a wheelchair gangster, you know, with this money, counting it. I went to the bank, and people would look at me with all this money. God, it was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
But, you know, at the end, she just sort of wanted to keep all of that the same. And it couldn't be.
Yes.
So she had to sell the buildings, and it felt like taking a terrible hit. She couldn't drive her car, and she was angry about that. Like she was angry to have people come and help her and take care of her. She didn't like them. Finally, thank God, she liked 2 people. Bless their hearts.
And you were one of the prime people that she loved unconditionally.
I don't know if it was unconditional. She did love me very much. She also this book came from 2 bits that I couldn't stop remembering. One was all the little snacks. I would take her sweets at night and put them on a plate with saran wrap. But the other one came from this moment when she woke this one day, and she was getting close to death. I don't know what voices she was hearing, what presences she was however you want it, whatever your belief system is, whether she was feeling them, knowing them, intuiting them, imagining them, whatever your belief system is, she felt she would look over her shoulder when we got to the landing to turn on the chair rail. She would look out the window. She'd look at that window. Like she was getting very afraid. Mm-hmm. And it felt like they were getting closer. And this one particular day, without her oxygen, without her eyeglasses, without her earphones, when I came up to her, she decided to grab my hand and wrestle them, and like as if she were going to, keep me from touching her. Mm. And I didn't wrench away because I didn't want to hurt her. But I had our daughter run down, go get Daddy, because his voice is a very kind of a wonderful baritone voice. His was the voice she could hear, even without her earphones. And he talked her down and got her to let go. I got her a cup of coffee and said, she's got to get something. Her blood sugar is low. She hasn't eaten. And when I brought her the coffee, done exactly the way she liked it, she said to me, "Oh, honey, you drink it first. You've had a cold. That may help your cold." And she was just cloying, game-playing, not herself. And I was so furious that I was unable to be a caretaker at that point. I remember I just slammed it down, and I said, "You know what? I don't play mind games, and I don't take them. I'm not going to take it from you. It's the only time I've ever spoken like that to my grandmother. I said, I'm not taking, if you don't want it, throw it in the potty, which was right next to it. But I'm not. And then it was as if she had tested me. She didn't believe the me who was kind to her at that point. But she did believe me when she felt like I was pushed to the wall. And she said to me, oh, honey, the fix I'm in, I couldn't trust the Lord Jesus Christ right now. It was lifelong Episcopalian. I mean, at the end of the day, Nana felt like she couldn't trust anybody. Period.
And
it was sad.
Yes. And I feel in sharing these kinds of stories, being so personal, saying this is what happened, there, aside from being drawn in and being such a part of it, we also are able to learn that how we might want to approach life. I know I was doing that alongside my mother, being there, but also an observer. And how do I want to approach my, the next days and the next years? Because of, similar to your Nana, there was that attachment to things. I think it's the generation that, early 20th century, where they had so little, just once they were able to acquire something, just they wanted to hold on to it, and it was hard to let go. It possessed them, right?
Claw marks. There were claw marks whenever. Yes, and it did not matter to her. I mean, she did feel genuinely sorry that keeping her house worked us all to death while she was living in our house. She was, but it was like, too bad. That's my house. As she used to say, I said, Nana, I can't, I'd run over there at lunchtime. We try to take care of it. Our older daughter, who had graduated college and was working, actually working at Penn, moved into the house because she said, well, at least if I move in, I can keep it. So she was a single young person who drove over to the bridge to live in this suburban house in a white neighborhood, by the way, and in the white neighborhood that white people had moved to when redlining had happened, to move away from us. Like, that's where she was. So it wasn't, she didn't feel like she was particularly welcome. It was way too much house for her and the dog. And when her pals, at work said, let's go out for a beer, she said, oh, I can't. Why don't you guys want to come over to my... No, nobody wants to drive over to the suburbs of New Jersey for a beer. Sorry.
Oh.
So, so we did all that. Nana would not. She would not let go. What she said to us was, well, honey, if you and Bob decide to put me out, where would I go? She laughed.
Meanwhile, she's been put on hospice. Yes, she recovered, but that we know where we're at. You're by that point maybe 101 already, correct?
Yes,
yes,
101 already.
Yeah.
And I must say, a part of me was surprised and kind of hurt by that.
Yeah.
What's the evidence? What do you mean put you out? But at the end of the day, I decided I had to use the hospice services respite care, which gives you 5 days where they take the person, your loved one, into their care for 5 days to give you 5 days of respite. And I knew to her it would likely signify abandonment. But she was not sleeping. My organization had a big 10th anniversary thing, which was, 3 events over a whole weekend, and, 5,000 people coming and making the mayor, new composer. I couldn't sleep. I was in her room with her at night while she was awake. And I lost it. I was not driving on the road safe. I was really spent. And I made that decision. I knew that that's how she would take it. And I made the decision anyway. It's a lot like looking at yourself and saying, what would I do and what wouldn't I do?
Mm-hmm.
And I did it.
And isn't that what we really tell those who are in caretaking roles? You need to take care of yourself, because if you are wiped out, if you're not going to be able to do it, who's going to take care of this person? So self-care, so critically important.
Yeah, I guess that's another thing that generation didn't believe in. And my generation, I hear it from our kids. I kind of believe it a little bit. I don't always do it as well as one should. But it was, in fact, in yoga, years and years after she had died, that I was able to begin to discover, and speaking of letting go, and let go of some of the grief and a lot of the anger that I had just, put into a little box and locked up inside me. And locked up means it was locked up at a cellular level, locked up in muscles that were always painfully hurt, locked up in a neck that I couldn't turn, so that you have to throw your whole body sideways to park the car. That's what we do with it.
Now, writing had all along been a kind of therapy, a way that you could release a lot, but it took you, as you said, years of having to deal with this before you actually wrote Ladysitting and were able to kind of really get to a place of peace.
I think so. A lot of things had to happen, including research into the little thumbnails of stories that she either told, didn't tell, or only referenced slightly, or made into, almost iconic stories that I later realized, whoa, this can't be all true, or this is only a little bit of this, or so looking up, finding out about her father, whom she idolized, but never told me much about, and learning about him and his brother, who were both secretaries for Congressman George White, who was the black African-American congressman from North Carolina. Her father and his brother were born right after the war. They came of age right when the federal government forced the southern states to write slavery out of their state constitutions. They grew up with this ferocious African-American rush toward enfranchisement. Black men, not women, of course, because the women weren't given the vote until years later. The men were going after the vote, going after land, going after their own ownership in a way that so upended the South. The whole, the Jim Crow structures came in specifically to figure out how to re-enslave them, how to get them back into a work-for-nothing situation. Her father, whose father had been a free colored man and had amassed 500 acres of land, her father was this wealthy landowner and worked as a secretary. And with this man was part of writing the first anti-lynching bill. Can you imagine that we're still writing anti-lynching bills, for God's sake?
Yes.
And he did it in 1900. In 1902, he had to leave because all of the people who were voting for him had been cut out by the grandfather clauses, by the poll tax, by the intimidation, by the bullying, and by the straight-up violence and straight-up lynching that was happening, so that there was nobody left to vote for him. There had been some white Republicans in the fusion, kind of a fusion politics happening. But he left in 1902, and her father, along with a number of other people from North Carolina, came to Philadelphia because all of the work they were doing had been stopped. Yes, they could themselves vote because they could claim a white grandfather or could pay the poll tax, but they could not build a citizens movement, and came north to do it. I didn't know all of that. And I had to look it up and find it out. There's some wonderful websites, a wonderful website called Scuffalong, where this woman named Lisa Y. Henderson, just looks up all of this stuff and had all these wonderful newspapers. And Nana never told me these things. All I knew was the sense of shame that her father had once owned land, and then now they didn't have it anymore. Mm-hmm. But I never understood why.
And such critical history that she was perhaps aware and didn't want to recognize that, but many of us don't know that. And you know, in your researching it and sharing parts of this in the story really makes us that much more aware and informed. And we could go further into that, but time is getting short, and I wanted to be sure that this is really in recognition of your great-grandfather, that you are very much involved with young people and voting.
Absolutely. The initiative is called #VoteThatJawn, JAWN. Jawn is a Philadelphia term coming all the way to you from Philly. Which is a substantive, it's just a street slang for whatchamacallit. So, you know, hand me that John over there. Well, it's a noun. It's any noun. So the premise of this, and we have a rap theme song, if you want to look it up, is if you would promote that John, then vote that John. Whatever it is that you would promote, that matters to you, vote it. Figure out how it connects to voting, because everything does. So we did it in 2018. We had lots of young people at the NPR station in Philadelphia, I must say, for a great event, to talk about strategies to get 18-year-olds that seam between high school and college. So we have kids in college and also in high school. But how to get them to talk to their cohort, so that it's not somebody older with their finger pointed. It's not a lecture. It is just 18-year-olds saying to each other, this is important, this is cool, this is fun, this is part of adulthood. It's like learning about partnering with a loved one. It's learning about driving and making money and having sex and figuring out your life. Like, all of this is about being a grown-up and being a citizen, having the correct power of citizenship. That's why Will Hagens went from North Carolina to Philadelphia, because they took it away from him, and he could no longer be an adult. So it absolutely feels to me like continuing that legacy. And the young people, they have a great Instagram, they have TikTok, they're doing blogs. We have a wonderful website, Vote That John, with really useful information. Please follow, please share. It's not just it is about registering Philly youth, but everything on it is applicable to young people everywhere.
And we know how critically important that is. I think we're seeing around us how the young people are really very much about making themselves heard, being activists. So it's all coming together very strongly, and this is a very important time.
Amen.
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 And so, before we have to say our goodbyes, we should mention your website, because there is a wealth of information, including all the other books that you've written. Of course, Ladysitting is so great, available in audio now too, which during this time we kind of resort to, but new in paperback just now. So, website, Lorene, is?
It's Lorene Cary, LoreneCary.com. And just remember, Cary has no E, but it's LoreneCary.com. And you're right, there's lots there. It connects to blogs. I do fresh blogs, not as often as I should. I did a play in the wintertime. You can see a little piece of that. There's lots of stuff there. Please do visit.
Let's visit, and thank you so greatly for taking this time with us this morning. It's just been such a great wealth of information and connection, and just important things that we need to be thinking about and acting upon. So thank you, Lorene Cary.
Thank you very much.
And with that, we're at the end of a very full hour of Inspirational Women with Lorene Cary and Sunday Morning Magazine with Dr. Colonel Michael Lewis, U.S. Army retired. I'm Kate Daniels, your host, and I greatly appreciate your sharing this hour with me and these special guests. For details you might have missed or information you'd like to know, please just send me an email, kated@warm1069.com, and I will get right back to you. Also, if you'd like to listen again or share these important stories with your family and friends, find the podcast on our Warm 1069 webpage. Just click on the podcast tab, then look for each of the show names. I now wish you and your family a day of realizing we have so much to learn and to begin that learning. Have a week of the same, and then please plan to join me again next weekend for another hour of Sunday Morning Magazine and Inspirational Women on Warm 1069. Good morning.